Good morning and welcome to the Peorian. I'm your host, Paul Gordon. There are Race for the Cure events across the nation nowadays, and they are even getting started in other countries. The cause is, of course, worthy enough to call such a proliferation because breast cancer knows no bounds. It doesn't discriminate. In Peoria, the Race for the Cure has a little more personal meaning. Susan G. Komen, the woman for whom the Race for the Cure is named and dedicated, was born, raised, and is buried here. It was founded by her sister, Nancy Brinker, and it's why the local Susan G. Komen for the Cure office has the distinction of being called the Memorial Affiliate. The 27th annual Peoria Race for the Cure is Saturday, May 12th, the day before Mother's Day, and organizers hope it surpasses last year's record of over 15,000 participants. To date, more than $8 million that has been raised through the race has stayed in Central Illinois to be used for education, awareness, and breast cancer screening for those women who cannot otherwise afford it. The good this organization has done is overwhelming, but there is much more to be done. My guest today is Gina Morss-Fischer, Director of Development for the local affiliate, and we'll discuss the race and other matters, including recent difficulties the organization has faced, when we come back. Welcome back to the Peorian. My guest today is Gina Morss-Fischer, Director of Development for the Susan G. Komen for the Cure Memorial Affiliate in Peoria. First, Gina, if you would,
yes,
give us the nuts and bolts about this year's Race for the Cure.
Oh boy. Well, as we have in years past, this is our 27th year. We invite thousands of people to join us on the Saturday morning before Mother's Day. Rain or shine, we've had wintry-like weather before. If this season is any indication, it could be a hot summer-like morning, who knows. But we ask them to join us early in that morning to celebrate survivors, to celebrate the strides that we have made in breast cancer research and treatment, and yes, to raise more dollars because the need is growing. We know that uninsured, underinsured, and low-income women in Illinois are in need of our help more than ever. So we invite folks to join us on that day. We've got some new fun things too.
Oh, really?
Indeed. Our Sponsors Village kind of reminds me a little bit of the Women's Lifestyle Show. You know, when you go in there and you get things in your goodie bag. We're inviting our sponsors to really participate in that area so that once folks cross the finish line and they grab their food bag, which everybody likes to get the food bag at the Race for the Cure. Thanks to all of our supporters, particularly Kroger, for helping fill that bag. We ask them then to go into the Sponsors Village. And there they might receive more educational tools and information, even some flower seeds to plant in their garden. It would be a nice spring Mother's Day weekend thing to do. But more than anything, to arm them with some great information from our partners. You might even find a hot tub there. Our top teams will have a chance to take a dip in the hot tub if they want to. Just fun stuff like that. And we're also inviting people to donate their hair this year. We would like to try to make that a new tradition where we're kind of cutting hair for the cure. Just another way to raise awareness and reach out in yet another way to kind of wrap our arms around those survivors who are maybe still patients in the midst of their battle. We know that wigs are certainly something that many women look to during that time of treatment to kind of boost their self-esteem, feel a little bit better about themselves. So just another way to come together to celebrate.
We are recording this show, of course, a few weeks before the event. So I'm sure you don't know a number, but do you have a feel for how many you might get this year? Do you think there's a chance you'll surpass the 15,000 you got last year?
You know, there is a chance. What I can tell you is that we keep an eye on our registration numbers. I'm kind of crazy about this, almost hourly, tracking, comparing to last year's numbers. We are holding steady. And in a time that has seen economic turmoil and a number of issues develop nationally, that feels pretty good. That said, we can't be complacent either because, as I mentioned a moment ago, the need is greater than ever. That means our fundraising has to be better than ever. So I'd love to see us surpass that number from last year. we're doing well, and our fundraising so far is ticking a little bit further upward than compared to last year. But again, not satisfied with that. We've got our work cut out for us.
Again, registration is open up until?
We'll register people the morning of, absolutely, at the race office. We don't want to have to do that, believe me. We appreciate those early registrations because folks who register early, that also means that they have a better chance of doing a little bit of fundraising.
Okay.
Your race registration is just that. It's your opportunity to register, to participate in the race, to get your T-shirt. IRS doesn't let us use that as a tax-deductible donation.
Okay.
Anything above that registration is tax-deductible. So, where do you start your fundraising? How about by making a self-donation? So when you go online to komenmemorial.org and you fill out your information to register, you can also make your own donation above that.
Okay.
Maybe you want to make a $10 donation. That's something that most folks could probably afford, and invite their friends to make a $10 donation. Gosh, if you had 15 friends, 15 of you that made a $10 donation, you'd help pay for someone's mammogram who needs it. Maybe you could make a $27 donation in honor of the 27th annual Komen Peoria Race for the Cure. Who knows? The opportunities are endless. But we also invite people to reach out to their friends and family. Send them an email, post something on Facebook or Twitter, or send an old-fashioned snail mail letter requesting, hey, make a donation, support me in this effort because I want to help save lives right here in Central Illinois.
Well, didn't you change last year the fundraising aspect of it?
How so? How?
I was the team aspect.
Well, teams have been a growing focus
Okay.
of Komen all across the country. And that's just really developed in the last couple of years.
Okay.
We know that the first annual Komen Bloomington Normal Race last year, they really grabbed hold of that fundraising idea. And while the number of people that actually participated in their race was lower, and that's to be expected in a first annual race, their fundraising was higher, and that's because they had a great number of teams that really participated in that effort. We are trying to focus just as much on that in Peoria. And gosh, if every person that participates in the Komen Peoria Race for the Cure just donated $10 each, we would far surpass our fundraising goal.
When we come back, we'll talk about some recent difficulties that Susan G. Komen for the Cure has faced and whether or not those will have an effect on fundraising efforts. Welcome back. I'm with Gina Morss-Fischer of the Susan G. Komen for the Cure Memorial Affiliate. Gina.
Yes.
As much as you all in your organization would probably prefer that the Planned Parenthood situation would go away, it hasn't, and I would be remiss if I didn't ask about it. I'm referring, of course, to the decision to stop funding or stop giving grant money to Planned Parenthood because of an investigation that was being conducted by the Senate. The organization got a lot of grief for that. It then changed its mind, got more grief. You tell me, you tell us, tell our viewers, what happened there?
Well, I think the initial feedback was a legitimate concern that, hey, you're saying you're stopping funding because of an investigation, but this group has not been found guilty of wrongdoing.
Okay.
Okay, fair enough. The point I believe that our national organization was trying to make was this focus on making our grants making opportunities as solid as possible, that our grant dollars would go to the best places where they have the best practices, where they can do the most good and reduce breast cancer deaths. More times than not, that means you're not only providing dollars to research, but you're providing dollars to hospitals, to other radiological facilities that actually do the mammography screening. That said, the criticism was that, hey, what about those areas where there is no other access or resource for low-income women to receive mammography. That was some of the backlash. Our national organization had done its homework to make sure that no one was going to be left out.
Okay.
But that got left out of the argument initially. So trying to communicate that women were never going to be left behind by Susan G. Komen is the place from which we must come now to say, hey, our focus has always been on women, all women, no matter what walk of life, no matter what their political or religious belief, anything like that. We are for women, for saving lives and ending breast cancer forever. Now, locally, Planned Parenthood hasn't applied for a grant.
Okay.
Well, now in the past, I believe in the mid-90s, there was an education grant.
Okay.
But since then, there hasn't been a grant with Planned Parenthood. We have grants that do education, are a resource for reaching out to women of all ages. And a lot of our grants, though, are focused more on screening efforts, some on treatment and outreach, and of course, 25% of every dollar that we raise locally goes to that cutting edge research. I will say this, if I may quote, a couple of years ago, as this issue, before it became this will we or won't we grant dollars to Planned Parenthood, when folks were getting concerned about this, our national organization put out a statement, and this was part of it. They reached out to a couple of Catholic ethicists on this issue. And here's some of what they had to say. While Komen affiliates provide funds to pay for screening, education, and treatment programs in dozens of communities in some areas, the only place that poor, uninsured, or underinsured women can receive these services are through programs run by Planned Parenthood. Like it or not, in a small number of cases, that would be the case. These two Catholic ethicists, Ron Hamill and Michael Panicola, examined the moral implications of the funding decision to support any grants to Planned Parenthood. And they said, quote, "The fact that some Komen affiliates at times provide funding to Planned Parenthood specifically and solely for breast health services cannot on the face of it be construed as wrongdoing. The good that Komen does and the harm that would come to so many women if Komen ceased to exist or ceased to be funded would seem to be sufficiently proportionate reason for Catholics and others to support those funding decisions."
Will this issue go away?
I sure hope so. I hope that we can get beyond this issue to focus on the women who need mammography services. Okay. By pulling away and not supporting Race for the Cure or other efforts like that Komen does, the only people that are hurt are those patients in need.
We're going to take a break now to hear from our sponsors, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the good that this organization has done. But first, here is our own Kevin Kaiser to tell us what is happening in the literary and culinary world.
Hey, it's April, and you know what that means? It's National Poetry Month. I know, I'm preaching to the choir on this one. I'm sure you've been celebrating all month with family and friends with all kinds of poetry-related festivities. I myself hosted my annual Dress Like a Poet chili cook-off. This year's winner was a 5-alarm nuclear chili made by an Emily Dickinson lookalike. It was deliciously depressing. Anyway, since it's National Poetry Month, I thought I'd talk about another Illinois poet laureate, and the most famous one, Carl Sandburg. Now, Carl was a real Illinois boy growing up in Galesburg. He was born in 1878, the son of hardworking Swedish immigrants. His father worked on the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad, while his mother was a hotel maid in Bushnell. The family was poor but full of energy and life. And at the age of 13, Carl dropped out of school to help support the family, shining shoes and delivering milk and newspapers. He then bounced around the Midwest as a migratory laborer traveling by train. Yes, our second poet laureate was basically a hobo, and that was reflected in his poetry, which depicted life in rugged and realistic terms. In many ways, he was the Woody Guthrie of poetry. After serving in the Spanish-American War, Sandburg was able to attend Lombard College in Galesburg at no cost. He was a good student and basketball player, but disappeared just weeks before completing his degree. He decided to strike out on his own as a writer and lecturer, traveling around delivering fiery orations, especially on behalf of workers' rights. Sandburg settled in Chicago with his wife Lillian and found newspaper work as well as a coterie of energetic writers who would create what was known as the Chicago Renaissance. Now, this was around 1914, and Chicago was the literary center of the nation. Sandburg began writing poetry, and his prose was similar to his upbringing, rough and original in character. He spoke to the common man, which poetry rarely did. He was known as a bare-knuckle writer who celebrated the woman digging onions for 12 hours, the slaughterhouse worker pushing blood with a broom, and the train porter smoothing the beds of wealthy patrons. His first volume of poetry was called Chicago Poems and was published in 1916. Other volumes include Cornhuskers, Good Morning America, The People Yes, and his epic book-length poem about the Depression called Complete Poems, which won him the 1960 Pulitzer Prize. He served as our second state poet laureate after Howard Austin from 1962 until his death in '67. So that's the quick story of Carl Sandburg. Now get out there and party, folks. It's National Poetry Month.
We're back with Gina Morss-Fischer, Director of Development for the Susan G. Komen for the Cure Memorial Affiliate, in
It's a
Peoria.
mouthful. It is.
Gina, I don't want to keep hammering on the Planned Parenthood thing, but do you think that incident, that situation, will have much effect on local fundraising?
I hope not. I really hope not. I hope there are enough people who understand what we do, why we do it, that in the small number of affiliates where there is such a grant, that those dollars are specifically for clinical breast exams and mammography pass-through grants. That's not to suggest that Planned Parenthood does mammography on site, but those grants would help someone who would come into their office, and if a lump was felt, they would be able to then refer them to a hospital or radiological facility and pay for that mammogram with that grant. And here, again, we don't have a granting relationship with Planned Parenthood. So I would hope those who, as a matter of conscience, would have a concern with that would be able to say, in the memorial affiliate, that's not an issue. And for those who maybe on the other side feel like, well, but that's a women's health issue and we support what Planned Parenthood does, well, you know, we're a women's health organization too, and we're not trying to take sides on that very divisive issue. Mm-hmm. We're trying to focus on women who have breast cancer and reducing mortality rates, giving people a chance, a fighting chance for life. And yes, for a cure. That's something that I would really love to talk about, because there are some really exciting things on the horizon when it comes to breast cancer research.
Can you talk about it now?
I sure can. You know, we are lucky and blessed that Komen has had a hand in all of the major breast cancer studies and new strategies over the past 30 years. Not only have we seen a reduced chance of mortality, meaning if breast cancer is caught in its earliest stages, it is now 98% survivable. But caught in its latest stages, only 23%. That means the need for education and awareness is as great as ever, so that women get screened regularly. We do believe that early detection through breast self-exam, through mammography, are keys to saving lives. Beyond that is this research. No other nonprofit organization puts more money towards breast cancer research than Susan G. Komen for the Cure. No one else comes close. Outside of the federal government, we are the top funders of research. HER2 breast cancers account for about a quarter of all breast cancers. So 1 in 4 breast cancers is a HER2 positive breast cancer. In just a few short years, our research shows us that there could be a cure for HER2 positive breast cancers. That's exciting. That's really exciting. So 1 in 4 breast cancers could be easily treated. Wow. Just, you know, when we're thinking of vaccines and things like that. That is an awesome, awesome thing. Now, how do you combat metastatic cancers? Looking closer at the BRCA1 and 2 genes, those genetic mutations that create a stronger risk for not only breast cancer but ovarian cancer. We're still learning more about that. We know a lot more than we did a few years ago, but we're not as close to the cures in those forms of breast cancer as we are with HER2. But gosh, if we can continue along this way, investing in this kind of cutting-edge research, then cures are right out there. They're just this close, we can almost touch it.
It almost makes you say, keep politics out of this. Let us just continue to do our jobs.
That's right. Let's do our jobs together. And that goes for the the person in Peoria that signs up for the race or makes a donation to their friend that's in the race, to the ongoing substantial giver who leaves something in their will, who wants their company to be a presenting sponsor of a major event, to make that kind of big investment. And those who just remind their friends about breast health in general. Have you done your mammogram? Or have you done your breast self-exam? Have you made your appointment for your mammogram? And events like Circle of Promise, where you're talking to your circle of friends and family. Those are the kinds of things we got to focus on.
Okay. Gina, thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you for joining us as well. And I hope you enjoyed the program and learned a little bit more about an organization of which Peoria should be very proud. Remember, you can see today's show in its entirety on our website, thepeorian.com, following this broadcast. And be sure to join us next week here on WHOI TV. Have a good week.
Ooh.